Welcome to This Week's OK at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, and my colleague, Russell Berger, both attorneys at Offit Kurman. And today we are talking about new EEOC guidance on LGBTQ plus issues. So the EEOC recently issued new guidance that is covering these types of issues in the workplace, which have been something that have been a topic of conversation for a long time. There's been some proposed guidance, but now the changes have finally come through. And the new EEOC guidance, just like everything that comes out from the EEOC, very voluminous, lots of things there. We will only be able to get to just a little bit on today's episode, but one thing that they are addressing in the guidance is the preferred use of pronouns. So if someone decides they want to use a certain pronoun, and what might classify as harassment as it relates to not using someone's pronouns. So Russell, what are some things that employers might need to keep in mind in the workplace now under this new guidance as it relates to pronouns specifically?
Yeah, well, I mean, the simple explanation is if someone says, these are my pronouns, then you should, use those pronouns, and you shouldn't, force what you think or what others might think are the proper pronouns on somebody. It should be, whatever pronouns they say, those are the right ones to use. Because what the EEOC guidance, to paraphrase, it really gets to is if you repeatedly, intentionally use the wrong pronouns or misuse pronouns, then that can be, in violation of Title VII, which is the law that prohibits workplace harassment and discrimination. So, getting the pronouns right is, going to be a really important thing going forward, at least as the EEOC has interpreted the law.
Yeah, and something to keep in mind here is that this is not going to be a I didn't know situation, right? Where, someone wants to be called a certain set of pronouns or addressed a certain way, and they don't communicate that to you, and you use the wrong one. Because I know that can be a concern to people, because if they, you might just make an assumption and then you might be wrong and those types of things. This is much more around the, they've expressed this to someone, and then you intentionally decide not to do it, or you don't address concerns or complaints around someone else intentionally using the wrong pronouns. So it's not going to be an issue of, I didn't know and now I'm getting sued, or now there's an EEOC complaint. But also, that being said, just like with a lot of things with harassment and with Title VII, like just blind ignorance is not going to be good either. So it's like, if I don't see it, if I just don't let them tell me, then I'm not in trouble. But that you also can't do that.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's maybe a shift for some employers. In context, the EEOC is an administrative agency. It's driven, it's headed by political appointees. So, some of the high level decision makers will change if, it's a different party in the White House. So these things can evolve and change, and ultimately courts decide how to interpret the law, not administrative agencies, although there's deference to administrative agencies as well. So, it's something that may still, wind its way through the courts. It may still have to be interpreted and argued over. But by and large, I mean, the simple advice for employers is, if someone tells you what their pronouns are, use them, and conform to that. And as you said, Sarah, it's not it's not like you misspeak and use the wrong pronouns at one point in time and now you've discriminated. But if you make progress, if you make a good effort, if you do the right things and occasionally make a mistake or have someone in your employ make a mistake, then that's probably not going to get you in trouble. But not having a system and not making efforts to try to make sure you get the right pronouns and use the right pronouns will get you in trouble.
Yeah, and from a practical perspective, all of this is also getting at having a productive workforce and having people feel comfortable at work. That's whenever we're talking about harassment under Title VII and EEOC. In addition to just kind of the nitty gritty that we're talking about here and what's right, what's wrong, like what you need to do to stay out of trouble, so to speak. It also just makes good business sense. to engage in these practices so that you've got a productive workforce. All of this is going towards making an accepting workplace and a place where people can be productive and do their jobs, which is everybody wins when that's the case.
Yeah, right. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like, how you want your employees that are engaged are better performing employees. And if an employee is worried about how people are going to speak to them or how they're going to be made to feel in the workplace, they're going to underperform because they're devoting mental resources to being defensive, being on the lookout, not focusing on their job and moving forward. They're playing defense. So, it's best practices, and regardless of the law, to do things that make people feel included, incorporated, and that, and foster that sense of belonging in the workplace.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Russell. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.